The markets continue to rally towards all-time highs with the semiconductors leading the markets towards the upside. Welcome back to another weekly outlook where I go over everything that I'm looking for coming into this week. I wasn't able to do one on Saturday, but I'm going to do one here for you guys today. We have a bunch of things to talk about with earnings, with FOMC as well. Let's get right into exactly what we're looking for, starting off with my trading calendar and my performance so far this month. It's actually shaping up to be a very solid month here. Net P&L $80,000, trade win percentage 53%, profit factor 3, 73% day win percentage with an average win to loss ratio of 2.81. Ended off last week with a super solid trade on Nvidia. Ended up nailing that trade towards the upside. I actually took a couple of tries, but this one finally breaking out. Plus we had some continuation today, of course. Ended off the week with $30,000, and then today so far up about $1.5 thousand on Intel, bringing me to a total of $80,000 for this month so far. As I mentioned, started off the month fairly slowly, but we've had a super solid rally towards the upside. And as you can see here, we've nailed some nice trades with, of course, the markets rallying towards all-time highs. And of course, with the semiconductors leading the markets higher as well. With that being said, let's get on to the economic calendar and what we're looking for coming into this week. Tomorrow, we do have 10 a.m. consumer confidence. The main thing, of course, this week is going to be the FOMC statement that is at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then we do have the Fed speaking that is going to be at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is going to give us a little bit more guidance on the markets here. And then, of course, on Thursday, we do have some more red folder news at 8:30 with advanced GDP, core PCE price index, along with the unemployment cost index. And then, of course, we have the unemployment claims here as well. And then on Friday, we do have the ISM manufacturing PMI, which is something to look for. As you can see here, we do have a bunch of red folder news followed up by a bunch of earnings, as you can see as well. Major earnings are reporting this week, specifically on Wednesday. But before then, we have Tuesday, Robinhood after close, BE, something to keep an eye out for, some more semi and memory names, STX. And then on Wednesday, we have SoFi before the market opens. After the market opens, a bunch of Mag 7 is reporting. Microsoft after close, Amazon after close, Meta after close, Google after close, Cars, something to keep an eye out for that's been running nicely for a while. And then, of course, on Thursday, we have Apple, also SNDK, more memory names, WDC, Reddit, we have AXTI. So we have a bunch of names, as you can see here, for the earnings. So make sure you are paying attention. Wednesday is going to be the big day, of course, with FOMC and earnings as well. So I'm expecting a lot of volatility, specifically on Wednesday. Before then, as you can see today, specifically for Monday, not too much has happened. Really, Nvidia was the only thing that was moving today. And then tomorrow, we'll see if there's any moves in the pre-market. But the main names and the main moves are going to happen on Wednesday and Thursday. So with that being said, let's hop right into the charts. Starting off with the SPY here on the weekly time frame. So as you can see here, if we're looking at it on a weekly time frame perspective, we talked about last week, as long as you can maintain above our previous all-time highs, bullish here on the weekly chart. As you can see for last week's chart as well, ended up closing above our previous week's candle. So bullish here on the weekly time frame. If you go into the daily chart, very bullish here as well, above our previous all-time highs. What we had here on the SPY was a very miniature gap on the daily time frame. We essentially defended this gap level and continued higher. So bullish here on the daily chart as well. If you now go on to the hourly time frame, every single dip really being bought up. Key level of support last week was our 702. As for the key levels coming into this week, really the main thing that we have is our previous week's highs, essentially, right? 712, multiple touches here. As long as you can maintain above 712, continuation towards the upside here on the SPY. As you can see here currently, at least for today, I am recording this on a Monday. Nice buyer stepped in here right off that 712, and now we're continuing back towards the upside, at least for tomorrow. Maintain bullish stance above our 714 for continuation towards the upside. So moving forward here, expecting continuation higher, right? Same game plan as the past couple of weeks. Every single dip has been bought up so far in the markets. Now what we like to see is a maintain above 712 for continuation higher. So at least that's going to be the key line in the sand moving forward and coming into this week, specifically coming into Wednesday and Thursday. As long as you can maintain above 712, we are bullish in the markets short term, and we are looking for continuation higher. If we go into the ES, very similar thing thing here. Key levels that we do have marked out, if we go into the weekly time frame, right, as you can see, very bullish on the weekly chart. Daily time frame, similar thesis. We are above our previous all-time highs. Bullish here on the daily chart. If we go into the hourly chart, every single dip has been bought up so far. We are above our key levels here as well, which is our 71.80. As long as we can maintain above this level, we can expect continuation towards the upside. So let's go on to the QQQ here. Very similar thesis on the Qs. The Qs is a lot more bullish. Plus, we'll take a look at the SMH in a second. Weekly candle, very bullish. As you can see, our last week's candle closed well above our previous week's candle. Continuation towards the upside, of course. If you look at the daily chart, well above our previous all-time highs, which happens to be that 640. Bullish here on the QQQ. If we go on to the hourly time frame, key levels that we have marked out is going to be that 656 along with that 664. At least for today, a little bit of a reaction here off our last week's highs, kind of lagging behind the Qs, lagging behind the SPY. But for the QQQ, maintain a bullish stance here as long as we can build up higher lows and of course above our previous day highs here. Now for continuation. If we go onto the NQ chart here on the weekly time frame, if we look at this on a bar by bar perspective, very bullish here on the weekly. Daily chart, if we're looking to bar by bar this, we talked about this last week. Every single dip has been bought up so far. Every single daily candle has been bullish. We have not had a single bearish candle here on the daily time frame. Not a single daily candle close has closed below its previous candle low. Every single candle, as you can see, has closed above its previous day lows, and that's a sign for momentum here in the markets. If we're looking at the daily chart, bullish here on the daily time frame perspective. Weekly time frame perspective, similar thing. Every single dip so far has been bought up. The key levels that we have coming into today and moving forward is of course going to be longs above our 27,400 here on the NQ. So as you can see, all the major indices fairly bullish. If we go on to the SMH, of course, this one is leading the markets towards the upside. Look at how of an explosive move we had on the SMH. The weekly candle closed bullish. The week after closed bullish once again. And of course, last week, look at how bullish of a candle close we've had on the SMH. Up about 40% in a couple weeks here on the semiconductor ETF. As you can see, AMD, we'll talk about AMD up about 80% in the past few weeks. A lot of semiconductors leading the markets towards the upside here, of course. So if we're looking at this on the weekly time frame, bullish. If we go into the daily time frame, of course, we're bullish here as well. Every single daily candle close has closed bullish here on the SMH. As for the key levels moving forward, what we're going to have marked out, at least coming into this week, is going to be that 508. A little bit of rejections today, but as you can see, nice bounce here off those lows. We're going to be looking for longs here above our 508 here on the SMH. With that being said, let's head on to some of the names that we're looking for coming into this week, starting off with Tesla. Tesla had earnings last week, really not too much to talk about here, right? Kind of a little bit of buyers stepping in. If we're looking at this on a weekly time frame perspective, we end up having a nice downtrend break here on the weekly time frame, followed up by a bearish weekly candle, kind of right back in towards that 380 here on the higher time frame. So not that bullish, right? Kind of had some follow through, but not too much. And we broke back underneath that 380. So moving forward here on Tesla, longs above 380, we can see this nice pushback towards upside. Rejection off that 380, we can see a move right back towards the lows. So that's what we have for Tesla coming into this week. So let's keep an eye out on that 380. Let's talk about NVIDIA here. So NVIDIA was one of our main watches that we talked about last week for a continuation higher, a lot of consolidation on this name. If we can break above that 190, next level, of course, is going to be that all-time highs. Last week, nice push up in towards our all-time highs, followed up by continuation this week here as well. But you can see nice consolidation. We talked about NVIDIA basing above our key levels. Next level, of course, is that all-time highs. Now you can see NVIDIA is at all-time highs. We can expect continuation towards the upside now here on NVIDIA. Key levels that we have marked out on NVIDIA, of course, is our 210. And of course, we have our previous all-time highs here as well, but we're above those levels and now we're continuing higher. NVIDIA continuation above our previous day highs is in play. Let's go on to AMD. AMD, as you can see here, explosive move towards the upside, up about 80%. In the past couple of weeks, broke above our previous all-time highs. And as you can see, look how bullish this weekly candle close here was on AMD. As you can see, huge gap on Friday, gapping up towards the upside. Now moving forward, just like to see maintain that gap for continuation higher. If we're looking at this here on the hourly time frame, key levels that we are going to have marked out is that 352. Other levels that we have marked out here is that 336. Continuation above for a push back towards the upside. Apple, as you can see here on the weekly time frame, really not too much to talk about. Not as bullish compared to the rest of the names. You can see a little bit more consolidation here on the weekly time frame. Weekly candle closed last week, fairly neutral here in the markets. If you do want to see continuation, now I'd like to see it above 280 at a minimum for that pushback towards the upside. So Apple, fairly neutral here. You're just going to base it off of intraday price action. Google is one of my favorite names. We talked about this one for a push up in towards that all-time highs. Nice push up after bouncing off those lows from April. We actually are hitting our all-time highs here today. Now, if we do want to see continuation here on Google, above our all-time highs now for continuation up in towards 360. As for Microsoft, we had some news recently this morning, but as you can see, last week's candle closed fairly neutral after having a very bullish bounce off the lows. If we do want to see any sort of pushback towards the upside, needs to get back above our previous week's highs for that continuation back up and towards that 460. If we're looking at this one, of course, this one does have earnings this week. We do have this daily gap as well. So if we do want to see Microsoft above 440, continuation towards the upside. As for Meta, not as bullish on this one. As you can see, inside bar last week on the weekly time frame, daily chart, key level is of course going to be that 678 if we do want to see some upside above that level for continuation higher. Amazon, this one is at all-time highs. Nice weekly candle close. We're at our all-time highs here as well. Now we just like to see it maintain above all-time highs for continuation higher. So that's what we have on Amazon. And of course for Netflix, this one is showing a little bit more weakness. As you can see on the weekly candle, pretty big rejections here right off that 108. Weak candle closure here as well last week, right back down in towards a key level of support. So not as bullish here on Netflix, but key levels you're going to mark out is that 91 potential bounce play for a move back up in towards your 100 here on Netflix. So with that being said, that was the main tech names that we have. Of course, a lot of these ones do have earnings this week. So we're going to be a little bit more hands off until earnings does present itself. But as for a few other names, we'll take a look at here, starting off with Intel. This one, of course, if we're looking at this one on the weekly time frame, one of my favorite names, if you guys have been watching the pre-market preps for a while, one of my top watches coming into 2026. And of course, with the semiconductor theme and everything else, Intel, really explosive move. We're at all-time highs here. We also had earnings last week as well. Super solid push towards the upside. Made a brand new all-time highs here, which is our 75 key psych. So as you can see here, Intel on the weekly time frame, very bullish. Daily time frame, very bullish here as well. Gapping up, and now you can see we're having continuation here. As for Intel, coming into this week, what we're just going to have marked out is going to be our high that we created here after that earnings gap up plus the low. If we do want to see some upside, end up trading Intel towards the upside today, targeting that 87. If you do want to see continuation above key levels for that push towards the upside. MU, continuation towards the upside here is in play, of course, as well. If you look at this on the weekly time frame, MU continue to show some strength above our key highs. SNDK, look at how big of these moves have had, especially on these memory names. So they continue to be bullish here on the higher time frames. On the lower time frames, just mark out down close candles for a continued push higher. Similar thing here with MU, of course. Continue to mark out these down close candles for that continued push towards the upside here in the market. So MU, SNDK, Intel, right? WDC has earnings coming up here as well. We're continuing to show some strength, of course, on these semis and memories. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, especially with a couple of these ones having earnings coming up. But really the game plan moving forward, fairly similar to the past couple of weeks. We're going to continue to look for long positions in the markets until it doesn't work, right? Until the market flips. That potentially could happen with FOMC or maybe after earnings, right? That could happen. But until then, we're going to continue to look for dips in the markets to look for longs. And we're just going to keep longing semiconductors, of course, because those have been showing a lot of strength. With that being said, that is going to be it for me today. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this. If you did, appreciate if you guys drop a like and sub. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for the pre-market prep. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.